Good morning. My name is Dave Thomas and I'll be hosting today's webinar. You'll see that you have a question and answer section in your window, so please feel free to ask questions as we go along and we'll have a Q&A session at the end of the event. So presenting today is John Richmond. He has 30 years experience working within the rail industry and has been fortunate to work in many diverse areas including freight operations, infrastructure monitoring and maintenance, vehicle testing, rolling stock production and refurbishment and signalling. Career highlights have included being part of the team which developed the world's first high-speed hybrid train and managing the Ashford Test Centre during the testing of the Pendolino fleet. And he spent time working in the United States and Japan and has been with Park Signalling for over 30 years as Business Development Manager. So over to you, John.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks, Christian, and good morning to everybody. Thank you very much for joining me today on the fourth of our webinars about Park Signalling and some of our key products that we've developed for the railway industry in the UK and internationally. First of all, a brief apology if you can hear any rumbling in the background. A thunderstorm has just started here, so hopefully it won't interrupt us, but if you do hear any unusual sounds in the background, then that's what it will be. Okay, I'll start off a little bit of background. Some of you may know us, some of you may not, about who Park Signalling are. So Park Signalling formed in the year 2000 by a number of engineers who worked for Alstom at their Trafford Park offices, which were due to close down and move south. So some senior management there decided to set up and use their experience within a business to look at what was predominantly SSI signalling solutions and helping develop those for the railway industry. So really what we do is that we deliver engineered solutions for railway signalling and telecommunications, not just in the UK, but worldwide, and also branching into industrial control systems. We've got course of 26, that is increasing as we stand, because we've been fortunate to be very successful in growing the business over the past few years. So mainly made up of experienced engineers who are specialists in their field. A number of part-time associates as well, which gives us flexibility in the size of the company and also means we can flex up, flex down, depending what opportunities there are out there. A lot of these guys and the women are very, very experienced in railway signalling especially, and help give us that proper, true expert advice when we need it. So I think really we pride ourselves on offering exceptional knowledge and a vast experience, and we like to think we have a pioneering approach to problem solving, putting the customer at the pinpoint of that. And we look at innovative design and development capabilities coupled with an extensive range of products and services to try and actually solve these problems for the industry. So we've got over 40 products on that side of the business, which are products approved for use on Network Rail. There's a list of some of them there, approved products. Some we've actually are still developing now, which you can see halfway down the page there. But what we're here to talk about today is our MTO4, which is a replacement for the SSI stations terminal. So I think probably it's worthwhile. Some of you probably know what SSI is, some of you don't. So it's probably worth spending a few minutes just to give you a refresh on what SSI is. So SSI is a type of interlocking signalling system. It was developed in the 1980s as the first computerized interlocking by British Rail, GC, which is now Alstom, and Westinghouse, which after a few acquisitions now sits with Siemens. So what this does, it uses electronics rather than electromechanical relays to actually perform the interlocking functions and communicate that down the line to any kind of trackside equipment, such as points, signals, etc. So it uses the same interlocking rules and control equations which are used in the relay-based interlockings, but obviously can do it in a much smaller, more compact way. So where you would have lots and lots of relays now, these are actually replaced by software variables, and only the final output driving relays are needed. So again, that's a lot less equipment, means it's a lot more reliable, but it's still as safe as the electromechanical interlockings. So basically how it works is the processor evaluates the virtual relays with software variables are using interlocking equations in digitized forms. So the control rules, equations are modified, the software algorithms, and stored actually on the system. So what that actually means is how it operates. Well, SSI uses a 2 out of 3 redundancy architecture, whereby all safety critical functions are performed by 3 separate processing lanes, and the votes and the outputs are voted upon. So as you'll see from the diagram later on as well, the SSI interlocking cubicle comprises of 3 interlocking processors, or multi-processor modules, as in our NPMs. There'll be 2 panel processors and a diagnostic processor module. Again, you'll see these on some of the later drawings. So there is some inherent redundancy built into that, in that an SSI system can operate with just 2 of the NPMs. If one of them fails, it can still operate safely and reliably. So what you have from there is they are linked through data link cables, which we'll come on to into a minute, and they'll actually link to trackside modules, trackside functional modules. Now, as you can see here on the pictures below, you've got some which are coloured with a black paint on them and some are red. So the points modules are the ones in black, and the signal modules are the ones in red. So basically, they can have a number of inputs and outputs. These can be operated like looking at the status of the points, the indication of the points, different elements on the signals, what's lit, what's not, and they're transferred back by the data links to the interlocking, so they actually know the condition of there and know that actually the interlocking rules are being followed. So as a key part of that, we spoke about the panel processing modules, the multiprocessor modules, etc., etc. Part of that system is a technician's terminal. So what that does, that enables a technician to go in there and actually check on the condition and monitor the safety of the system. So when this was developed in the 80s and 90s, obviously the main computing system out there was Microsoft DOS. So it remains today as a DOS-based DOS-based system. And what you'll see there, it may be a little bit small, but you can see there towards the center, you've got the actual technician's terminal computer, which is the long oblong box in the middle. Then that actually feeds out and records its outputs on a tape module. It's only a Penny and Giles tape logger, as you can see there at the bottom. And it also then displays out, as you can see on the right, onto a VDU and also a printer. Now, obviously, these systems, when they came out, were very reliable. They still are reliable, but the software support and actually support for the components within there was getting very, very difficult for the industry to actually manage. And also, if you've got new engineers coming into the industry, they're not going to be expecting to be faced with a DOS-based system. So really, this just highlights a few of the issues that there are there with the original technician's terminal. As I just mentioned, it's obsolete, difficult to source components when they fail, very unintuitive unless you've been brought up on a DOS-based computer system. It's quite bulky as well because it's using old cards and old computing systems. It takes up quite a bit of space as well. Another thing is although there's built-in security with passwords on there, the password has been common knowledge within the signaling community and probably further afield for many, many years. So it's not really as secure as it would need to be. So if you bear in mind the picture I showed you before with the architecture there on the left of what the original technician terminal is, Park Signaling looked into this and we thought, how can we actually improve on this? How can we improve on all those key issues that we've raised before? So what we've done is develop a replacement for the technician's terminal, which is actually based on off-the-shelf components, thereby helping solve the issue of things becoming obsolete. And it's also more based on a more Windows-type environment as well, so that it's more flexible and actually is easier to use, much more user-friendly for the users out there. So you can see the components actually there on the left-hand picture there. The Mugger T doesn't come as standard, but we can supply that if necessary. But really, you've got the key components there. You've got 2 VDU screens. You've got a Moxa Ethernet interface module there. Small box in the middle is a small industrial PC. And then obviously you've got your keyboard and mouse. And if you look to the right, that's basically the system architecture of it that you have there. So if you move on to compare the 2 systems side by side, whereas on the left-hand side, you've got a lot of bulky equipment that's obsolete, clunky, can go wrong quite easily. On the right, we've replaced it with a much more slick system, much more reliable, much more user-friendly, and it gives a lot of benefits which will come on to the end user, and also in case of well, there's times where there may be an incident, something like that, the key benefits of that as well, which we'll come on to. So one of the things that's been key to this has been looking at the functionality of this. So what we're doing, we're taking exactly the same information that's there on the original technician's terminal, but what we've made is getting access to that information and being able to analyze it and use it more effectively has been key to what we've tried to achieve with this. So all the information you see on here comes from the tag files that are populated onto the system. Now, one MT04, similar to a original technician's terminal, can monitor up to 6 interlockings. So you can see it's a bit small here. On the left-hand side of the screen, there are 6 boxes there. Okay, so what that means is that rather than having to go out and interrogate each interlocking separately and in turn, you can monitor all 6 at the same time. So that's a big time saver and gives you more flexibility in there. So what you can see there on the left is the indication of faults on there. So that actually is very useful for looking at where there are faults on the interlockings and identifying them quickly. The second one you've got there is actually for the engineer's control. So one of the key things that the technician terminal does is engineers are able to go on there and put signaling controls onto the interlocking for testing purposes to check that the interlocking is functioning correctly. Now, on the original system, you can do one at a time. On here, you can prepare a program of tests across up to 6 interlockings and apply them individually to the interlockings and run them concurrently. So again, it's a very, very big time saver on there. And also, each user going into this will have to sign themselves in to identify who they are through their login, and so you can therefore monitor who's actually got access to this. So again, it's the same functionality, but taken to the next level. So you can be far more productive on any visit that you've got there when the technician's performing these checks. So what we've got here as well is this is monitoring the outputs from the interlockings. So on this screen, you'll be able to see what's all the data, all the telegrams that are being sent along the data links. And again, monitoring up to 6 interlockings at any one time. There's also added functionality here towards the bottom in the small screen. You can see if you want to, for any particular interlocking, you can just look at certain telegrams. So that means that you're not tied up looking, having to scroll through streams and streams of telegrams, looking at all of them. When you're looking for a particular fault on a particular telegram, you can identify and isolate it on here, so you get exactly the information and data that you need. Again, saving time and meaning that you've actually got a very, very powerful tool here. So again, looking at the functionality, what happens when you've got that information? If you look on the left-hand side, you can set the time parameters on here and parameters of what you're actually looking at, and you can actually produce a report which you can then download and take away. So it means you can go away for further analysis. If you're looking at trend reporting, you think there may be a fault somewhere, but you can't actually, you've got a lot of work to do, you can't look at it at that time. You can download it onto a stick, take it away with you, and do that analysis back at base, which is very, very useful, very, very powerful tool there. And the final extra, or one of the final extra we've got here on the right-hand side is, this is a representation of the signaler's panel. So this gives you a graphical view of the live signaling panel. And one of the great things with this is, as you can see on there, again, it's a little small, but it shows you individual track circuits, points, signals, even down to the different coloured lamps on there. Now, on the live system, if you go and hover your cursor over, for example, a signal lamp, it will go down at the bottom here, tell you not only what telegram it is, but what bit. So that means you don't have to go and get all the charts and the records, etc., like that to identify this. You can do it live on the screen. Again, a massive, massive time saver for you, and something that's really, really important, we think, for proceeding on the process. And it means technicians can actually be more proactive. They can look at things in quick time, and it gives you that extra flexibility of another way to look at the information. So just really wrapping all this up is that the benefits we feel of this is, first of all, it's all the equipment standard commercial off-the-shelf components. So from an obsolescence perspective, that's great. It means that, you know, we can source replacement components going forwards without any impact on the performance of the system. But it also means we can enhance the system, which we'll come on to in a minute. So it's not fixed as it is at the moment with the current technician's terminal. With this can grow with you. It's directly compatible, all the electrical interfaces, so the inputs and the outputs, all compatible. We have 2 RS-232 ports on the back, for example, a number of USB slots on there as well. The equipment, as you see in itself, is much less bulky. The front end is a lot more user-friendly for people that are used to more of a Windows-based environment as well. And also, you can see there improved functionality, not just in what I've shown you through there on the screens, but for example, if you have a major incident, what used to happen or currently happens with a technician's terminal is that it's taken away. So by the investigating party. So what that means, use the capability to restart or stop that interlocking. Now, restarting and interlocking can only be done from the technician's terminal. So if you haven't got it there, it could cause major disruption. What we have on the MT04 is that all the data is actually stored on a hard drive on the system, but also on 2 encrypted pen drives. So if you were to have an incident, the investigating officer can come along, remove one of those pen drives, and you still have a fully operational technician's terminal there. So you keep your functionality there as it's going forwards. And then I think probably the key thing with this is we've had very good dialogue with Network Rail throughout this process. And we gained product approval a while ago now, and it's been very successful, and it's already been ordered by a number of areas and other people on Network Rail, and also internationally outside of the UK. So we're very pleased that we had a successful launch of this product. But to show we're not actually just sitting on our bottoms and, you know, patting ourselves on the back with this, we've actually already started further development of the product. So the first one, which we're very pleased to say is actually now incorporated in our product acceptance, is compatibility with Balfour BT Asset View. So you can have that form of graphical replay that you're used to out there. The system will plug into the RS-232 ports at the back and can maintain that functionality for you. One of the things we've been asked to do is remote access to apply and remove technicians' controls. Now, the system's fully capable of doing that. It's a question of the security around that and how you can do that remotely and securely. So we're in consultation with various parties in the railway industry as to how they see that operating and what we think will be the best way to actually incorporate that kind of functionality on there. So we're also now in development of an offline analysis application tool. So graphical replay, I know, is something that people like about the current system. We don't currently offer a graphical replay functionality with the MT04, but that's something that we're working on now. But as I say, you do have access to Asset View and such like that if you need to do that kind of replay. We also can output to a printer still, so you can still get your printed copy of everything that's coming off the technician's terminal. And really looking at how we can do that functionality by using a dongle in effect, so we can come along and give you a plug-in update to the system. That's something we're looking at doing on there. So I know that's quite brief and run through on what's on there, but obviously we can go into a lot of detail as to how it actually works and how it's developed. But I think hopefully that's enough to whet the appetite of those of you that are interested in this product. We'd be more than happy to discuss any other issues or anything that people are interested on that. And we also can give demonstrations, live demonstrations of how the system works. So thank you for listening to me on that. I hope it's been interesting and informative. And I'll just hand back to Dave and try and answer any questions that have been raised.
Absolutely. The chat box has been electric. So Robert asked a few questions. How many interlockings could the old technician's terminal manage?
That could be 6 as well. So we replicated the number that it could manage. So it's the same number. We've not increased it. It can operate up to the same number.
Okay. And the graphical representation that you showed us, is that updated when the data is updated? Is it in live time?
That's in live time. So that's actually a live view of what the signaller sees. So that's a reproduction of the signaler's control panel that he or she sees in the signaling center.
Cool. Now you mentioned as well some pen drives which could be removed. Do they overwrite constantly, and how many days data do they store?
We've looked at it at the moment because the actual amount of data is very, very small. I think we're looking at somewhere in the region of 2 to 3 years before they start overwriting. So, and don't forget, it's recorded in 3 places. It's recorded on the hard drive, and it's recorded on the 2 pen drives. So either way, you've got far more record keeping of the data than the system anywhere gets near to at the moment.
And the HDD that you mentioned, would you remove that for incident investigation, or is that something that would always stay in the system?
That will always stay in the system. As I mentioned when we were looking at the last part there, I did mention there that when you have the incident investigation, what the inspector will do is come and take one of the pen drives. So the hard drive remains on the system at all times.
And if you take a pen drive out, can you put another one in, and will that start from that point, or will it be?
It would start from that point when you put it in, yes, yes. But they're encrypted, so we issue the pen drive so that they're controlled and encrypted. You can't just go along and plug any pen drive into that. We've dealt with that cyber security issue on there so that you can't actually interfere with the interlocking.
Seems sensible. The Balfour BT Asset View, are there any license constraints with that?
If you've got the last, I'm not sure actually how they actually market their product, but if you've got Asset View at the moment, then you can just swap over, I believe, when you remove the old technician's terminal and plug this new one in, then I think your existing license will cover you. But I'm not an expert on how Balfour BT actually license out their software, so that's probably more of a question for them.
Okay, we've got a question from Australia. Thank you for staying up late to ask the question. Can you run over how it will handle simulation functions?
So I think probably we'll perhaps have to do a breakout for this and look at any specific questions you've got on simulation. But the MTO4S, which is a product that goes out there, it has full simulator function on there. So you can actually go on there and simulate faults and problems and such like. So yes, it is compatible and can run simulations on there.
I've got one here that sounds quite complicated, so I'm going to read it out verbatim. When monitoring the flags and latches, do you still have to have a list of the IDs to monitor the ID number, or do you see the name of the flag?
That's a very good question, and above my level of technical knowledge. So thank you, Luke, for raising that. If you have your details, I'll ask our engineer to respond to you on that one.
And then Ray's asked a question about switching pen drives and what happens to data for the intervening period. Can you get data off the HDD?
You can, but there'll still be another pen drive in there as well. So you've still got it recorded in 2 places. So yeah, the data's secure on there still and recorded twice, even if you remove one of the pen drives.
Okay. And the question that everybody always asks: what's the cost of a new?
Indeed. So obviously, all circumstances and layouts are different. We normally need a little bit more information from a customer to do a bespoke price for them. So we're very, very happy to talk with Robert about his requirements and produce a quotation for him.
Okay, there's a point there from Alistair. I don't know if you can see it. Does that mean anything to you, John?
Again, that's one for the engineers, I think.
Okay, Alistair, we'll get back to you on that one directly. I have one question. So you mentioned earlier that you had a bit of interest in Network Rail. How many units have we got on order or in service at the moment?
We're getting into double figures now as the number have been ordered. We've got 3 or 4 in service at the moment. We've got some in service in Portugal as well, and we're expecting orders for another half dozen or more coming up over the next month to 6 weeks. So again, it's, you know, people have looked at it, they've liked what they've seen. What we're looking at doing as well is establishing a user group once we get a few more of these in the field, and then we can actually sit down with our industry partners and with our customers and actually sit down and listen to how they want to look at any additional enhancements and etc. for the technician's terminal. So we really want to engage with our customer base on that going forwards to really make the product do exactly what they want it to do.
Okay. More questions coming in about service requirements and maintenance. What's the regime for that?
In fact, there's no special requirements for maintenance on there. You've got basically a small industrial PC, you've got a switching device, and you've got two VDU screens. So from a maintenance perspective, we don't see that being a massive issue at all. It's just a normal kind of keeping an eye on how it's operating, etc. If there were to be any updates on software or things like that, then obviously we'll handle that separately with the customers at the time.
Okay, another question from Australia. Does it allow central time syncing?
I know that there is, I think that it will do syncing. With regards to central time syncing, I'm not exactly sure. We perhaps need to understand the context that you're looking at for that one. But I'm sure we can get an engineering answer for you on that.
Okay. Can software updates be done live during traffic?
That's again a very good question. I believe, yes, we've done some installations, and we normally recommend that you do it, at night when the maintenance period is going on. But I think in one of the recent applications, we were able to do it live while the system was operating.
And the question about the COT software licenses being transferred to end user.
I believe that the software comes with a. I'll have to double check on that, but I think you have the license for the life of the product with that. We don't be charging extra licensing on top of this product at the moment.
Okay, we'll come back to you on that direct, Alistair, I think, later on. So, questions have either stopped or people's fingers are still busy typing them in. Thanks for that, John. As per usual, I've learned something about the system as well, which is really useful. Later today, for all attendees, I'll be sending out a feedback form, so please give us your feedback on the content and let us know of any further questions you have if anything occurs to you. We'll also share a link to the recording of the webinar so that you can always come back and look at it again at a later date if you need to. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and that is the end of the webinar. Thank you. Goodbye.